My dad refused to pay for my tuition because I would be competing with his golden child. So I make my way up on my own and make sure to get my revenge. I 28F, still remember the day my dreams came crashing down. It was supposed to be a celebration. I'd just been accepted into one of the top medical schools in the country. Instead, I found myself sitting across from my father in his study, trying to process his words. "I'm sorry, but I can't pay for your tuition." He said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Your brother's law school is already stretching our finances thin." I stared at him in disbelief. "But you promised. You've always said you'd support my education, no matter what." He shifted uncomfortably. "Things change. Your brother's career is important for the family business. We need to focus our resources there." The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't about money. It was about my father's golden child, my older brother, the favorite who could do no wrong, whose dreams always came first. "You mean you won't pay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "because you don't want me competing with him." My father's silence was all the confirmation I needed. I stormed out, tears blurring my vision. My mother tried to intervene, but her placating words fell on deaf ears. I was done being the afterthought, the daughter whose ambitions were always second best. That night, I made a vow to myself. I would become a doctor, with or without their help, and I'd make damn sure they regretted underestimating me. The next few years were a blur of part-time jobs, student loans, and sleepless nights. I worked as a barista, a tutor, anything to scrape together money for tuition. My grades never slipped. If anything, my determination fueled me to excel even more. Meanwhile, my brother coasted through law school on my father's dime. Family dinners became battlegrounds of thinly veiled resentment. My accomplishments were glossed over, while my brother's every minor achievement was celebrated. I threw myself into volunteering at hospitals and clinics, building a network of mentors and connections. One attending physician took me under her wing, recognizing the fire that drove me. "You've got something special," she told me. "Don't let anyone dim that light." Her words became my mantra on the toughest days, when the weight of loans and exhaustion threatened to crush me. I clung to my dream, visualizing the day I'd don that white coat and prove everyone wrong. Graduation day arrived in a whirlwind of emotions. As I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I scanned the audience. My mother was there, dabbing at her eyes, but the seats reserved for my father and brother remained empty. I pushed down the familiar ache of disappointment. This was my moment, and I wouldn't let their absence tarnish it. The years that followed were a testament to hard work and perseverance. I threw myself into my residency, earning a reputation as a skilled and compassionate doctor. My specialty, pediatric oncology, was grueling but deeply rewarding. I paid off my student loans ahead of schedule, each payment a small victory against those who doubted me. I bought my first home, a modest but comfortable place that was all mine. Success, it turned out, was the sweetest revenge. It was during my 4th year as an attending physician that my carefully constructed world collided with my past. I was reviewing a new patient's file when a familiar name jumped out at me. My nephew, my brother's son, had been diagnosed with leukemia. For a moment, I considered recusing myself from the case. But a bigger part of me knew this was my chance to rise above the pettiness, to be the better person. I called my brother personally to discuss treatment options. His voice was raw with fear and gratitude. "I know we haven't. I'm so glad you're there," he stumbled over his words. Over the coming months, I poured everything I had into my nephew's care. Long nights spent at his bedside, comforting my brother and sister-in-law, coordinating with specialists. I left no stone unturned in the fight for his life. My father appeared at the hospital one day, looking older and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. He hovered awkwardly in the doorway of my office. "I don't know how to thank you," he said quietly, "for everything you're doing for them." I met his gaze steadily. "I'm doing my job. This isn't about us." He nodded, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I was wrong," he whispered. "About so many things, I'm sorry." The words I'd longed to hear for years washed over me. But instead of the vindication I'd imagined, I felt only a profound sadness for the years we'd lost. "It's a start," I replied simply. My nephew's recovery was slow but steady. With each small victory, I felt the ice between my family and me begin to thaw. My brother's arrogance gave way to humility and genuine appreciation for my skills. My parents, especially my father, watched me work with a mixture of awe and regret. On the day we declared my nephew officially in remission, my entire family gathered in his hospital room. There were tears, hugs, and a palpable sense of relief. As the celebration died down, my father pulled me aside. "I need you to know how proud I am of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just for this, but for everything you've accomplished. You did it all on your own, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to support you." I felt years of anger and resentment begin to crumble. "Thank you," I managed to say. "That means a lot." It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. There were still awkward silences and old hurts that needed addressing. But it was a beginning. In the years that followed, I watched my career flourish beyond my wildest dreams. I became the youngest department head in my hospital's history, published groundbreaking research, and mentored a new generation of doctors. My family, slowly but surely, became a part of my life again. My brother and I found a new respect for each other. He admitted that watching me fight for his son's life had changed his perspective entirely. "You're the real deal," he told me one day. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." As for my father, our relationship remained complicated. There were good days and bad moments of connection, followed by old tensions bubbling to the surface. But we were trying, and that counted for something. One crisp autumn evening, I found myself back in my father's study. This time, it was he who had called me there. He handed me an envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check. "The exact amount of my medical school tuition plus interest. I know it's too late to change the past," he said softly, "but I want you to have this. Do something good with it." I stared at the check, a swirl of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Part of me wanted to refuse it, to prove I didn't need his money now. But a wiser part recognized this for what it was, a tangible admission of his mistakes and a desire to make amends. I thought of all the promising students I'd encountered, brilliant minds held back by financial constraints. "I have an idea," I said slowly. "What if we set up a scholarship fund for students who have the drive but not the means? We could call it the Second Chance Scholarship." My father's eyes lit up. "I think that's a wonderful idea." As we sat there hashing out the details of the scholarship, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. My journey hadn't been easy, but it had led me exactly where I needed to be. I'd proven myself, not just to my family, but to myself. The revenge I'd once craved had transformed into something far more powerful, the ability to change lives, including my own. I'd built a career, mended bridges, and found a way to lift others up along the way. Looking back, I realized that the greatest victory wasn't in proving my father wrong. It was in proving to myself just how much I could accomplish. And now with this scholarship, I had the chance to help others do the same. As I left my father's house that night, the weight of old resentments finally lifted from my shoulders. I'd made my way up on my own, yes, but the real success lay in using that journey to create something positive, something bigger than myself. My revenge, it turned out, was living well and using my success to open doors for others, and that, I decided, was the sweetest victory of all.